Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Winecast. This cast is part 2 of a series on the Loire Valley that I originally thought would be a 3-part series, but that's looking like it's going to turn out to be a 4-part series, as there really is a lot to say about the Loire. Last week, we covered the Pays Nantais on the western end of the Loire Valley, so moving east, the next region to cover is Anjou-Saumur, the two regions that begin the Middle Loire. Terrain around the city of Tours is also part of the Middle Loire, and its wine culture, though it has strong affinities with the wine cultures of Anjou and Saumur, is also very much its own thing, and we can cover it in the next cast. So let's start with some general considerations about Anjou and Saumur, and about the wines that those regions produce. First, wines are produced in these regions, as well as in Touraine to the east, in a wide variety of styles, with dry reds and whites leading the pack, but a number of wines are also produced as dessert styles, rosés, and sparklers. Two grapes, Cabernet Franc and Chenin Blanc, do the lion's share of the work, but in keeping with the variety theme, they're supported by a number of other grapes that sometimes take the lead themselves. Specifically, among the reds, Cabernet Sauvignon, Gamay, a couple of local grapes, Groyot, both as a red and a gray, and Pinot Dony, as well as Pinot Noir. And among the whites, Chenin is supported by Sauvignon Blanc, Chardonnay, and another local grape, Arbois. Like a lot of regions in France, the entire area is covered by a single appellation, in this case, Anjou. On the map to the right, it's identified by the number 13, and you can imagine all of the other numbered appellations as lying on top of the Anjou appellation. There are actually two main Anjou appellations for still wine, Anjou Rouge and Anjou Blanc. Wines made under the Blanc appellation will be driven by Chenin Blanc, while wines made under the Rouge appellation are allowed to have either or both Cab Franc and Cabernet Sauvignon in the driver's seat. Rosé is produced under several appellations running the stylistic gamut from sweet to dry, and really meriting their own discussion. Though it's not as well known for its rosés as other regions in France, like, say, Provence, the Loire is an important producer of this style. In fact, about half of Anjou's total production is rosé. Cab Franc or Cab Franc and Cab Sauv are usually the main grapes involved, though the other Loire reds can also be part of the blend and even take the lead. As a general rule, the farther east you move along the Loire, the drier in style the rosés tend to become. For example, the two rosé AOCs explicitly associated with Anjou make the sweetest examples, with Cabernet d'Anjou, made from both Franc and Sauv, requiring a minimum of 10 grams per liter of residual sugar or 1% residual sweetness, and Rosé d'Anjou, made primarily from Groyot, requiring a minimum of 7 grams per liter or 0.7% residual sweetness. By contrast, at the eastern end of the area in Saumur, rosés made under the Cabernet de Saumur AOC max out at 7 grams per liter, the same level of sweetness that Rosé d'Anjou has as its minimum level. The Rosé de Loire AOC, that pulls grapes from all over both Anjou, Saumur, and Touraine, requires its wines to be dry, as do the various rosé appellations of Touraine that we'll look at next week. So, as you go east, the pinks tend to get less sweet, but keep in mind that since the general Anjou appellations cover the entire region, the grapes for Cabernet d'Anjou and Rosé d'Anjou can be sourced from the area that Saumur sits on. So it's best to think of the farther east equals drier equation as more metaphorical than strictly literal. Speaking of sweetness, there are a number of appellations that huddle along the Loire River and then along the Loire just downstream from where the Loire empties into it, whose business it is to make sweet wines. There are 7 appellations involved in this production. Anjou Coteaux de la Loire, mostly on the Loire River, Bonnezeau, Coteaux du Léon, Coteaux du Léon Chaume Premier Cru, Coteaux du Léon Village, that includes a total of 6 villages that can use their names on labels, Coteaux de l'Aubance on the small Aubance River, and Carte du Chaume Grand Cru. These appellations all make their wine from Chenin Blanc, and their locations along the various rivers is no accident. The rivers create humid conditions and morning mist that encourage the development of botrytis in the grapes that adds a signature honeyed quality to the style of these wines. Since 2010, 2 of these appellations, Chaume and Carte du Chaume, have been able to legally distinguish themselves through the use of the terms Premier and Grand Cru, respectively, a new development for appellations in the Loire Valley. Wines from this region can be intensely sweet. Carte du Chaume, for example, has to clock in at a minimum 85 grams per liter or 8.5% residual sugar, which is pretty darn sweet. But the wines also have characteristically high acids that help to balance the sweetness. Saumur, in the eastern part of the region, produces dry reds based on Cab Franc and supported by some of the other Middle Loire reds. It also produces dry whites that, as of the 2016 vintage, will be made exclusively from Chenin Blanc. Coteaux de Saumur, number 18 on the map, produces dessert wines from Chenin Blanc made off-dry to sweet and characterized by high acid to balance the sugar. And speaking of high acid, there is a final, very special appellation in this region that we should consider, Savennières. Like the sweet wine-producing appellations that are its neighbors, Savennières AOC produces wines made from Chenin Blanc, but, with a few exceptions here and there, these wines are dry, acidic, and famed for their complexity. So much so, in fact, that one wine writer, Jacqueline Friedrich, once called Savennières, quote, the most cerebral wine in the world. Word. The production standards for the general AOC here are fairly strict, but the area has two sub-appellations with even stricter standards and even greater reputations for quality. Savennières Coulée de Serran, a truly tiny appellation of just under 18 acres owned by a single producer, Nicolas Joly, and Savennières Roche à Moine, an appellation about 4 times larger, but at 82.5 acres still quite small. Wines from any of the Savennières appellations are well worth seeking out. Finally, the Loire is a very important producer of sparkling wines. Look for wines from appellations using either the designation Mousseau, as in Anjou-Saumur and Saumur-Mousseau, or Crémant, as in Crémant de Loire. Both of these wines are made in the traditional method and come in white and rosé styles, with the major difference between the two designations being that production standards, such as sur-lie aging, are less rigorous for Mousseau than Crémant. You'll also see AOCs with the designation pétillant, a word that means something like fizzy in French. And these wines that are made in Touraine have less pressure in the bottle than do Mousseau or Crémant, and are thus only slightly sparkling. Like Mousseau and Crémant, AOC pétillant are also made in the traditional method. Saumur, the largest producer of sparkling wines in the Loire through its Mousseau AOC, and a major source of grapes for the Crémant de Loire AOC, is a big player in Loire sparklers, and its importance in this area is closely linked to the tuffeau soils that dominate the area's soil profile. Tuffeau is a form of chalk or limestone that you'll also hear called Touronian chalk, a name that it gets, fun fact, from the city of Tours where it was first identified. Chalk and other calcium-rich soils tend to have a high pH. That is, they're low in acid, but counterintuitively, high pH, low-acid soils tend to produce grapes with juice that has a low pH or high acid, which is exactly what you want when making a sparkling wine. Tuffeau is present outside of Saumur in the rest of Anjou, but the western end of Anjou, including the dessert wine appellations and Savennières, have soils that are based on schist, a mineral-rich metamorphic rock. Thanks for joining me for another Winecast. We're now halfway through the Loire, and I'm looking forward to the next cast on Touraine and the one after that on the Upper Loire, and I hope you are too. Thanks for all the likes and comments that I've been getting lately, and please keep them up as I love hearing from you all. Thanks to all of my subscribers, new and old, and to anyone who just takes the time to give these casts a view. I really appreciate your support for this channel. I'm your host, the Unknown Winecaster, and I'm out. Enjoy the grape, but always enjoy it responsibly.